Good afternoon. They're working.
Everyone, would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. I don't. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Woodland. My name is and I'm the current student body president here at Woodland Regional High School. I'm incredibly glad to be moderating today's Connecticut Gubernatorial debate alongside George Colley, WTNH News 8's lead investigative reporter. When we think of the perfect team, we likely think of a group of people with one vision, always agreeing and on the exact same page with each other about everything. However, this may not be as ideal as it sounds. In order to push boundaries and consider broader possibilities, we need a wider range of opinions and thoughts. Ideas from people with backgrounds different than ours can teach us to think about issues in new ways and provide us with new inspirations and knowledge. Debate and disagreement are not the end of teamwork, but the beginning of it. And that is what brings us all here today. We have several candidates for the roles of governor and lieutenant governor for the state of Connecticut, each with varying political affiliations. There's plenty of ground to cover, so Mr. George Colley will quickly introduce himself, cover our debate rules, and then allow our candidates to introduce themselves.
Thank you very much. I've heard outlets so far this morning that things went great, and I've said it to a few people. I spoke to a couple of candidates, and they told me that the students that had tougher questions and have held us to the answers tougher than us reporters do at all. So great job to all of you that are out there in the pods talking to the candidates today. My name is George Colley. I am the lead investigative reporter for WTNH News 8 and also covering politics here this year. I had worked in Connecticut for about 6 years with the Fox Connecticut station and NBC Connecticut. Spent a couple years in Washington, D.C., covering the final year of the Obama administration and the first year of the Trump administration. And had the opportunity to come back here to work at News 8 here almost exactly a year ago. And the idea was to be able to cover the campaigns here, and I'm very excited to do so. So I really appreciate you guys extending this invitation today. And I look forward to your questions and the candidates' answers. Now, today's questions have been generated using the students' input on the issues they are most concerned about. For each question, each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer. At 45 seconds, we got our crew over here in the corner that's going to hold up a yellow card, and that will give the candidates an idea that they only have about 15 seconds left. And then at 60 seconds, you're going to see a red card. If it gets to 65, we're going to tackle you on the stage. So be prepared for that. The order in which candidates answer has been randomized. Are there any questions from the candidates before we begin? You're going to have a chance in just a minute, you're going to have a chance for a 45-second introduction so we can know who you guys are, why you're running. And which is a great beginning. And so we're going to start with some introductions. First, Mr. Rod Hanscom, Libertarian Party candidate for governor.
Thank you very much. My name is Rod Hanscom. I'm the Libertarian candidate to be the next governor of the state of Connecticut. I'm from Stamford, Connecticut myself. And often people ask, well, what's the reason, what's your passion for wanting to run here in Connecticut? And I tell people real quickly, after graduating Stamford High School many years ago, I was in the U.S. military for 6 years. I had the good fortune of being able to live in different parts of the country, different parts of the world. But I lived in Texas for a year, and then afterwards I lived in Washington State for 22 years before returning back to the beloved home state 4 years ago. And after being in Texas and then being in Washington State, you see what the high-growth states in this nation are doing. And then coming back to Connecticut, you see what we're clearly not doing, why we're 49 out of 50 for economic growth last year. So the passion is having a vision for the state Connecticut needs to go. We appreciate everybody being out here today and participating. Thank you.
Mr. Joe Walker, Lieutenant Governor candidate, Republican.
Thank you very much, George. My name is Joe Markley. I'm the state senator for the 16th district, which includes the town of Prospect. For some of you out there in the audience, I've been in that role for the last 8 years. I've had a reputation as a fiscal conservative, an opponent of tax increases, an opponent of big government. I'm on the ticket with Bob Stefanowski because I think we have to go in a very different direction in Connecticut. We have to restore economic growth. And the way to do that is to get government off the backs of our businesses, create a good climate for industry and for innovation in Connecticut, something that existed for many years that has been destroyed by bad public policy. I have said I will not support an increase in taxes. It's the wrong way to go. We've got to find the cuts in government and put us on a path to reduce the burden of taxation. I appreciate the chance to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Waking it all up, make sure you whatever I did, I'll probably do it again, and I apologize. Mark Stewart Greenson, he is the Americans for a Minimal Government candidate for the Amigo Party.
And I am an educator, so I do feel comfortable, and I'm going to start, instead of introducing myself, by asking you a question. And please ask this question of your parents and grandparents. How many of you or them feel comfortable with a candidate who is socially liberal, fiscally conservative? Because you're looking at it. To some extent, you're looking at 3. And you haven't had that before from the traditional Democrat and Republican parties. Yet I got on the ballot by the petition route, Rod and Oz did too. And we know that at least 70% of Connecticut feel that way. Socially liberal because the government should stay out of your business. Fiscally conservative because it's your money. And I respect that. My website is stewartforliberty.com. Please encourage parents, grandparents, and yourself to look on it.
Thanks, George. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to be here running as governor. I've been in the state 25 years, running as an unaffiliated ticket along with my running mate, Marty Frank, who lives in Newtown. I live in Hartford. Running because both of us had a great 25 years here, and we want to contribute our expertise, our networks, and making sure that you have the same opportunities that we've had. We're running as an independent, unaffiliated ticket because we believe that only an independent governor and lieutenant governor can bring both parties together and bring the private sector together, not only promote the great assets that remain in the state, but to address the serious fiscal impediments that are in the way for you having a great future here in Connecticut as well. And the last thing I would say is on November 6th, we're telling people, vote the bottom line. That's where Monty and I will be. We'll go Republican, Democrat, Independent Party. I think it's the Working Families Party, Libertarian, Amigo, and we'll be right down there at the bottom. So keep scrolling down to November 6th and get to that bottom line.
First question.
So we're going to start with our questions. Again, as a reminder, 60 seconds for every question. Our first one. What is the single most important issue you see in Connecticut currently, and how do you plan to solve it?
And the first question goes to Mr. Hanson.
Thank you very much. Once again, I'll reiterate, the point is sometimes we need to understand that it's a very competitive landscape out there, the competition between states for residents and for jobs. And when things aren't working well, people will vote, will also vote with their feet, they'll move. Forbes magazine just came out recently, and they listed the 10 fastest growing cities in America. And 9 of the 10 fastest growing cities in America were in states with no income tax. Now, there's only 9 states in the United States that don't have income tax, so the statistical probability that that is random is about 1 in 1.5 million, meaning that just works. Digging into that further, there's been a lot of talk about the Republican promises of no income tax working towards it, but when I dug into it further myself, out of those 9 cities, all of them are in just 5 states: Washington, Nevada, Texas, Tennessee, and Florida. And all 5 of those states have the exact same taxation model. They have no income tax, they have a high sales tax, usually 8.5% to 9.5%. So we want to do what works for it, and if that's what's working in the high growth states, we need to move that immediately.
Thank you very much, George. Certainly the most important thing is economic growth. Without economic growth, none of our problems are going to be solved. With economic growth, many problems will be solved, including some of the problems of our cities, including some of our societal problems of crime and poverty. It's absolutely necessary And the way it happens is not by government intervention, but by government allowing the private sector to restore this economy. I grew up in a state that still had an economy that was the envy of the world, with a tremendous manufacturing base. Bad public policy has destroyed that over the last 30 years. Good public policy will get out of the way of entrepreneurship and allow that kind of growth to take place again. That's what I'm fighting for. I'm not too far off from my libertarian friend. In fact, I spent some time in Tennessee about 20 years ago to help them stop an income tax as I tried to stop one here in Connecticut.
Biggest issue, I think, is to have you leave here with a healthy disrespect for government. Because the government at the state level messes up almost everything. They don't run things like you would in a family. You, if left to decide, would never pay 11 times the value of a property. What Governor Malloy's staff just did to build the train station fee. You would never vote for contracts that give pensions based on your highest 3 earning years. Oh, and you can add it with overtime and travel expenses. You would say that's ludicrous. And even most legislators will. Okay, they'll say that's ludicrous. I know Joe has. But he's part of a system of bad representation because it's too big. Individuals and small groups and municipal governments do our deeds so much better. Please respect that.
Thank you. The biggest challenge facing Connecticut is the erosion of confidence by residents and employers that we are going to address the major fiscal impediments to growth. We've had no net job growth in the state of Connecticut in 30 years. We lost 120,000 in the 89 to 91 period. It took about 15 years to get it back. Lost the same 120,000 jobs in 07, 08, and we barely got about 100,000 of those back. The goal of the Regal-Frank administration is to work with employers, restore confidence among residents, so that we can, over the next 10 years, add 200,000 net new jobs in the private sector. Job growth is the key. More people paying taxes, not more taxes at higher rates, is the key to a robust economy. It's the key to driving the revenues that will allow us to invest in transportation and in education. I got something yellow on the red card. I just want to make sure I got the right card over here. And make sure that we've got in that revenue stream to invest in the things that are going to be critical to you to stay here in Connecticut.
And you know, the order has been randomized. So here would be Mr. Stewart, Mr. Hanscom, Mr. Markley, and then Mr. Griebel for this question. So Mr. Stewart, over the past several years, many of Connecticut's largest companies have relocated to places like Boston and New York. With them, many jobs have also moved. What do you plan to do to increase business friendliness and job creation in the state?
I have 2 things besides just plain recruiting business. That's a no-brainer. I think every one of us will be spending time in other states. I'm committed, if I'm governor, to being in New York and New Jersey once a month. We can move people here and their businesses because we are a better style of life than New York. You can have a swimming pool in your house here. You can't do that in Brooklyn. We have a better pitch. The only impediment to Connecticut for relocating business is what? Government. But government is the easiest thing to change. That's why I think I'm more optimistic than Bob or Ned, because it just takes willpower. I would bring in business this way. Choice in schools. I think it's important. You have a good regional system here. We should have it statewide. Let people have, yes, a voucher to go to the places that they want. That's going to bring families in. Irrespective of whether their company is relocating them, some people will come to Connecticut for its strength. Let's push its strength. That's schools.
Thank you. Each question, so I know that he brought up Bob there at that point, but you'll have the opportunity to give him a response when your time comes. But first, Mr. Hanscom.
So once again, I'll get to the point of what I saw in Washington State. So I came from Seattle, which was the #1 real estate market in the country. It's just booming like crazy. Came to Connecticut, which is number 50 in the nation. But the biggest thing I see in Seattle, the encouragement for businesses sometimes people talk about what's fair. Well, it's not fair if corporations don't have to pay a lot of tax. It's not fair if high wealth people don't pay more tax. Well, the thing is, the reality is that the top business people out there, for instance, where I came from Seattle, Jeff Bezos and Amazon, Howard Schultz, Starbucks, they both came from the East Coast. They went to Washington State. They went there for high tech, but they also went there because there's no income tax. Businesses and high wealth people want to go to those places. But what happens when you don't have high taxes, you are overlooking all the growth that happens. One high wage job, say a job that pays $100,000 a year, is probably going to create about 3 extra jobs all around. That more than pays for what you're getting back in tax breaks. The reality is businesses move where the best opportunities are, the best business climate is, and that's what we need here in Connecticut to attract those businesses back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we're likely to be in large agreement on this question. One thing we have to keep in mind, I'm accused sometimes of being gloomy because I see our current situation as being so bad. But the other thing I know is the state has all the advantages it ever had. We have a magnificent location as a piece of property within the United States of America, near New York City, near Boston, good ports. We have a good transportation system if we can get it back together. We have an excellent, educated, hardworking workforce, and we have the best higher education institutions, I think, mile for mile anywhere on the face of the earth. If we can start moving in the right direction, I think we can make progress quickly. We saw that happen in Massachusetts, where a relatively mild change in public policy has brought rapid growth. That's what we need in Connecticut, and I think that's what Bob Stefanowski can bring us.
The single biggest asset we have here in Connecticut is our proximity to Boston and New York. We are competitive in commercial and residential real estate costs and in traffic congestion. It's still an expensive place to live, but compared to those housing and office space costs, research space costs in Boston and New York, we are a relative partner. And while we have congestion here in the state, particularly along I-95, again, it's relative compared inside of 128 or any kind of I-95 traffic down into New York. We have to remember how important that proximity is, and then focus not so much on recruitment, but on getting our employers here, our residents here, to be positive about the state of Connecticut. Have the confidence that we are going to address these fiscal issues so that you will be the promoters. The most important thing a governor can do in the near term is under the adage that your next best customer is your current customer, is stay close to the employers who are here today to ensure that the jobs that are here today stay here, and the next job they have is in Connecticut and not in South Carolina or New Hampshire.
Yeah!
President Trump announced that he would phase out the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, or DACA, which protects undocumented immigrants who came to the United States as children from deportation. What do you plan to do about the Dreamers living in Connecticut?
And Mr. Stewart, you're first, then we'll go to Senator Markley, Mr. Hanscom, and Mr. Green.
It's first last name, just want to make sure.
And they had, I think they've got it randomized in 2 different places, so you get to go first, too, right?
So, it's a very complex issue, immigration. And in fact, it's the only issue that I have changed on in 20 years. And Lamont changes by the week. Look at a steadfast person, you're looking at one here. And the only reason that immigration I've changed on is because the situation has changed significantly. Overall, to answer your question, I don't want to penalize innocent people. And DACA is meant for kids that had no choice, brought here, let's let them stay as best as possible. But we should do everything to deter parents who aren't going through the system, which is slow. It should be made faster and somewhat fair, and it's manifestly unfair to have people who are jumping the line, illegally crossing borders, coming in on forts, while other people, dutifully in countries that want to be here, wait their turn. We need fairness. The immigration system right now is rife with unfairness.
I think Mark has a good point about this. having borders that you can maintain is absolutely critical to the existence of the country. Once we establish borders, we can figure out who we let in. And I would be liberal in allowing people to come here. We were built with the strength of immigrants. I think it's been a positive thing throughout our history. And the diversity that we've brought, the talents they've brought, the culture they've brought, has been a great thing for our country. But it's got to be something that we have under our control. And we can't allow immigration. We're doing no favor to people to give them the impression that they can come here that leads them to take dangerous trips to this country, or that brings them to this country and prisons them essentially in circumstances where they can never get ahead because of their status here. When we get the border under control, then we can make an intelligent decision about how we proceed with immigration policy.
So when people ask about this question, and they'll ask specifically about sanctuary cities, and I was like, no, as governor, I would not support sanctuary cities. Illegal immigration is illegal for a reason. Along the way, somebody did break the law. Now, that does not mean we're anti-immigration. We're actually very pro-immigration. If you look at the power of this country is fed off the energy of the next hungry wave of people coming here. But Joe hit on it directly. The amount of people, the millions upon millions of people in this country who are working for cash under the table, the millions amount of legal Social Security numbers that are out there. The bigger picture here you realize is when you travel around the world, I've had the great fortune of being able to travel to 40 countries as a tourist throughout my life, is you don't understand how incredibly popular and how much of a beacon this country is, not just for immigrants, but people that want to come here and vacation and spend extended things of time and drop billions upon billions of dollars. They would. What happens with this system is it becomes so difficult to get a tourist visa that we're missing out on all that money out there.
I'm not running, obviously, for federal office. But what this situation says, 30 years of Congress in partisan fights that can't come to grips with the 11 million illegally undocumented immigrants in this country is irresponsible. And to have the states put in this situation, which is not what our primary responsibility is irresponsible and reflective of the partisan nature of government today. That's why this notion of an independent approach, I think, is critical here in the state. Clearly, this is a country that Joe mentioned, I think also, is we know that how important immigration is. We know how important you young folks who are here under the DACA program, how critical you are to the long-term future of Connecticut, how much vibrancy you bring, how much intellectual capital you bring. Making sure that those folks who are here under the DACA program stay here is an absolutely critical component, and I, as governor, would do everything I could to make sure that that remains the case.
On this issue of immigration, I'm going to deviate for a second, give each candidate like 15, 20 seconds to answer. You've shown with the Malloy administration, the Connecticut delegation, Senator Blumenthal, Senator Murphy, Congressman Laura, oftentimes will be speaking out, standing aside an immigrant who is at risk of being deported. Oftentimes it could be inside a church. Here in Connecticut, there are immigrants who are seeking asylum inside churches as we speak. If you're elected governor, it is a federal issue, but if you're elected governor, what side of that church door will you be? Will you be looking to protect that person and work to keep them from being deported, or will you be working more with ICE in order to deport them? And let's start with Bishop Greenwald. We're going to talk. Let's use the example of that. There's a gentleman online right now who's been in a church for more than a year, and so it could be families, it could be parents, but I guess just more about how you would lead on this issue for people who are here in Connecticut.
I want to make sure that the individual and the family were at appropriate representation so that the rule of law applies, their rights were protected. To me, that's fundamental to what this country is about. I recognize we have obligations to make sure, as has been pointed out, that illegal immigrants are not here. But there is a core to this country about respecting individuals, and I would be probably, what side of the door I would be on, I'd be on the side of the door to make sure that that individual had full protection under the law.
The rule of law should apply, I agree. It should apply before you come here. The rule of law is, there's documentation deserved, there are in some places quotas, and you violate it. And I'd like to have more immigrants, I'd like to have many more immigrants. We need them in our labor force. We need them here. That's why I've invited Puerto Ricans who are Americans to come up here more to fill some of the positions that are unfilled. But when people will undo the rule of law, it's up to the government to say no. So my policy, this is more at a presidential level than gubernatorial, but it would be, in theory, you come here, you need to have learned English decently first. You can't have taken welfare, or if you have, you're paying it back, and you do something that is civically good, like all of us do in some part of our lives for the rest of the community. Show you're an American that the rest of us want, and I'm on your side.
I'm sympathetic with people being here, and I spent a lot of time, in fact, happy years, I've done a lot of teaching over this throughout my life. One of the things I enjoyed most was teaching citizenship classes for people who were looking to legally become citizens of the United States. But the state should not interfere with the federal government's enforcement of immigration law, nor should politicians be situating themselves on either side of the door just to be near the television camera, which I think is too often what's going on today.
And I'll just take the opportunity to finish the point I was making before. And you know, as much as this issue polarizes people and the video cameras are always on the U.S. border or the Mexican border, equally as many people show up in America every year on tourist visas and just decide that they like it so much that they're going to stay. So once again, that 500,000 people that stay are cutting off the millions upon millions of extra tourists that would be flooding this country all the time, because this country is so popular. We're missing out on billions upon billions of extra revenue that's out there. So in this case, I would leave this a complete federal issue, not a state issue.
So you wouldn't be involved in either way?
I would not be involved.
And so now the order here will be Mr. Griebel, Mr. Hanscom, Mr. Stewart Greenstein, and then Senator Martin. And the question is, wealth in Connecticut remains incredibly polarized, as does the quality of our schools. With larger corporations having left, what tax sources do you plan to focus on, and what is your spending priority?
What tax sources? Is that what
So with larger corporations having left, what tax sources do you plan to focus on, and what is your spending priority?
So I'm going to do this very quickly because the idea of what we need in this budget, we're looking at a $4.6 billion operating budget this first biennium. $4.6 billion on a $40 billion operating deficit is not child's play. So what we have said, the most important thing we need to do in this next biennium is do the least amount of harm in trying to balance that budget. Do the least amount of harm to municipalities, the least amount of harm to agencies that serve the most vulnerable. So we look at taking the roughly projected $2 billion rainy day fund into account to reduce that down. We would look at things like deferring for 2 years contributions for retirement systems. While it exacerbates the problem in the near, about the long term, we've got some specific ideas to look at that. We have to look at this biennium in terms of the priorities under the heading of doing the least amount of damage, eliminating, not increasing it or establishing new taxes, and again, not having spending cuts that do irreparable harm to the economy or the quality of life we were have. That has to be the first priority in the biennium next as we put that budget in.
Thank you.
So the state of Connecticut does not have a revenue problem. We, by most calculations, have the second highest tax rate in the nation, second only to New York. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. The spending problem goes beyond spending, it goes to efficiency. Now, I had the chance to talk to some of the kids earlier today. They've been to their website, they've seen some of our proposals out there. As governor of the state of Connecticut, what I'm trying to do creating culture is if we were a retailer, we need to have an Amazon.com mentality. We need to find efficiency savings wherever we can. We need to scratch and claw for every fraction of a penny that's out there to run the state as efficiently as possible. We would never in a million years support pools. We're not looking at any tax increases in the state whatsoever. And from any program, welfare and social services, the Department of Transportation, and I'll get to the cost. You know, we say transportation in the state. U.S. average repaved 1 lane of highway 1 mile is about $200,000. Connecticut, it comes in at over $500,000. The cost of educating kids, to be quite honest, $19,500 per kid across the country, in the state of Connecticut. Across the country is $10,000. It's about efficiency, and no tax increases.
Mr. Greenstein.
We do not need new tax sources. George, everybody, we need to stop spending money badly. And that's not quite the same as Rob's proposal about efficiency. I'm in favor of that. But we spend money on things that the government shouldn't be doing. The government should not be doing welfare functions that private people, small towns, good organizations, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation can do better. And if you have more money in your pocket, we can do those very things better. Welfare was not part of the original state idea. It was usurped by states in the 20s and more so in the 30s. And we've been stuck with it. And one reason we're stuck with it is because it empowers Democrats. It lets those running the legislature get more and more money and more control. They like distributing money. Come to me so your town will get more. That's something we should be against.
Thank you very much. I can't say what a pleasure it is to be on a panel where I'm kind of moderate. I agree very much with what everybody has been saying. I'll say this, our spending priorities need to be those services which no one but state government can provide. And I would say in that category are things like public safety, transportation, aid to municipalities, which we have to maintain because if we cut it, it's a tax increase by other means. Care for those people that can't otherwise take care of themselves. Education. I think that we can still find the savings necessary within the budget to get through a biennium without raising taxes, require about a 5% spending cut. Again, Mark mentioned the ridiculous overpayment that we made. I have challenged in court a $10 million bonding issue for a toll study. We've got to stop wasting money like that. Another thing I've pointed to over the 8 years I've been in the legislature is the Board of Regents for higher education. Plenty of places to cut spending. What we don't want to do is raise taxes.
Thank you. Our next question in order is Mr. Markley, Mr. Kriegel, Mr. Hanscom, and Mr. Greenstein. On December 14, 2012, 20 children and 6 adults were fatally shot at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. Since then, there have been over 100 additional gun violence incidents at schools in the United States. The right to keep and bear arms, as enshrined in the Second Amendment, is a constitutional right, but still subject to control. What are your plans for gun control and accessibility? Mr. Markley.
I firmly believe that we do not need further restrictions on the rights of law-abiding gun owners. We're not the problem in these situations. I think that the gun control measures that we've passed in Connecticut have done nothing to increase public safety. They've been intended to make political points, and I've been opposed to them. We've got 2 problems. One is an issue of mental health, which needs to be approached seriously, and it's going to require government funding. The second one is a matter of strengthening and protecting places like this school that could be targets of people that wish to do mass harm to folks. But the restrictions that are brought up year after year are not to the point. I would say that if you educate yourself about the firearms that are involved and the dangers that are associated with them, you find that the difference between, I guess I'd say this, every weapon is an assault weapon if the intention of the person wielding it is to do harm. And the matter is not the weapon, but the person that has it in his hand.
My running mate, Mike Frank, has been heavily involved in legislation here in the state at the federal level to reduce the incidence of gun violence. He lives in Sandy Hook, and after that massacre 6 years ago, formed something called Team 26, which means 26 cyclists riding from Newtown to D.C. to put a focus at the federal level on legislation to reduce the incidence of gun violence, not to undermine Second Amendment rights to reduce the incidence of gun violence. Clearly, mental health is a key component of that. The background check components that have been defeated at the federal level to us is critical to try to reduce those incidents of gun violence. To make sure that those with mental health problems, those who have been discharged dishonorably from military service, committed their own atrocities on various military bases. Those things need to be maintained. And as governor, one of the things that I will do is work with the governors of the surrounding states so that we have consistency in the types of legislation that will help reduce those horrible incidents of gun violence.
And I will elaborate on Joe's point there. He's absolutely correct. When you do the real studies, it's very difficult in politics. The most difficult thing in politics is to be able to dial down the emotion and just look at the facts and what's really out there. With the guns, 97% of criminals don't buy their guns legally. They don't want them traced. So these extra gun laws we enacted in Connecticut, are they really stopping criminals from doing what they're going to do? Anyways, are they really stopping criminally insane people from doing what they're going to do? Anyways. Periodically I'll bring in a worldly event. One of the worldly events I'd like to interject into this issue is I've had the opportunity once again to travel extensively throughout the world. And we look at the big countries out there, look at China and look at Russia, the bigger point of guns and the Second Amendment. You know, China has what they call a dictator, they have a president for life, excuse me. Russia has what they call a president for life. Well, we used to just call them dictators. And when I traveled around, the United States in the last 200 years is the only country that's never lived under a monarchy, has not lived under a dictator, has not had runaway corruption, has always had peaceful transfer of power. There's something about an armed populace that keeps tyranny at bay. And that's why, in the Libertarian Party, we believe that liberty is managed in the second.
I'd like to personalize this somewhat. Unless your principal was withholding something of me, he told me that we outside the school, or maybe in, have one armed resource officer. Ask yourself, if God forbid, there was a shooter in this room, would you be somewhat more content that some good guys with guns among us could take him out? The people who react, and I think it is unfortunately a reaction more than wisdom, that following a Parkland shooting, following a San Diego shooting, that it is reaction, but what do we do next? But the next thing is the thing we've always been with, and Rod is right, that the safety and the lack of tyranny here generally owes to good guys who've been able to have guns. They're your best friends.
Do you think teachers should be carrying guns?
That should be a school-by-school choice. And I'm a big fan of choice in schools anyway. I think most teachers shouldn't. I think it makes the classrooms too severe, but I think there might be access outside. And the main reason for access outside to well-trained, armed people is to deter the maniac in the first place. Even they don't want to get blown down before doing their misdeed. Deter in the first place.
So this would be Mr. Hanscom, Senator Markley, Mr. Stewart-Greenspan, and then Mr. Green. According to an analysis by the state's Office of Policy and Management, Connecticut saw a nation-leading 20% decline in violent crimes from 2012 to 2016. How do you plan on keeping Connecticut crime low? Mr. Hanscom.
When you study crime, you look at what's happening out there with crime. There's a lot of social reasons. When the economy is good and the economy is better, yes, typically crime will drop also. But there's also a lot of technologies that are happening out there these days. And that gets into big brother questions, but with homeowners having the doorbells or go right to your phone, the amount of cameras out there, they can film things that are happening. I guess whatever I can do technology-wise and working with the police force, of course, we want to do whatever is the most effective to keep the crime rates, and our goal will be to keep these crime rates dropping further. There is no bottom to this. Of course, we want them to be as low as possible.
The number one way to discourage crime is swift and sure punishment for people that do violent things. I think that all of us agree that folks that are involved in nonviolent crimes might be well served by alternative forms of punishment. And I think we should have as few things on the criminal code as possible. We should be careful. We should give people as much liberty as they can and not prosecute them for things that are not a threat to society. But insofar as we have violent criminals among us, unlike what Governor Malloy has done with his early release program, we have to lock them up and make sure they serve their sentence. We have the chance while they're in prison to give them the kind of education, encouragement, and treatment in many cases, especially addiction treatment for addiction that they need. But there's no way that people should be allowed to walk the streets and commit crime.
Joe, I agree. We should not prosecute for things that are not a threat to society. Can you please ask Bob to end the drug war? People who are not doing harm to other people, okay, they're just poking. Why make that? Okay, this is the progressive side, Stuart. It's not the government's business to be busting down people who are not offending anybody else. Meanwhile, there are crimes that are not being going after. Every time your computer gets locked up, it's because some criminal, might be abroad, is messing with the financial backbone. We should use the same detectives who right now have to bust down people in cities for crime, and instead put them on the Bulgarians who are trying to steal from us and do ransomware. By the way, the drug war, if it's lessened, also improves race relations. Because right now, in urban cities, it puts too many African Americans in the sights of cops who have no business messing.
Three things I would say is first sitting down with the municipal police chiefs and the state police force, the head of state police, to make sure we're leveraging all of our tax dollars most effectively in terms of data exchanges and what have you, so that the people out on the beat we've got the right resources applied to and support them. The second thing is we have to look at crime within the context of public education, particularly in those urban areas where children don't learn to read at grade level by third grade. You know what the patterns of those things are. If you don't read by grade level at third grade, your likelihood of being incarcerated goes up dramatically. So the idea of preventing someone by giving them the skill sets that they need are critical. And the third thing is taking a hard look at the second chance program. The idea of making sure that someone who has been incarcerated who's paroled comes out with a skill set that will reduce the likelihood of recidivism, will reduce the likelihood of that individual recruiting others into the life of crime. This is a comprehensive approach that is necessary to not only reduce but sustain the reduction in crime.
So one of the follow-up questions would be yes, no, and just because we had heard you bring it up, Mr. Stewart. Legalizing marijuana, where do you all stand on?
It's a no-brainer, yes.
Recreational, I should say.
Just
Recreational, just not to kids.
we have more than 5 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely.
The legalization of marijuana is around us. We're going to have to deal with this issue. The points that we've made is we want to make sure we understand what the safety issues are. Should the age of purchase be the same as the age of purchase for alcohol? About the idea of driving under the influence. We have the right technology to understand the differences about the influence of alcohol versus the influence of marijuana. The most important thing I would say is that using the tax revenue that comes from the sale, we would not put into the operating fund. We would dedicate those funds to supporting substance abuse programs. We're dealing with mental health issues. We don't want to just take the revenue on something that can come in and not look at how these things are interwoven and interlinked. To me, this again is one of these issues, not just looking at the legalization, but what are we going to do with the money and how are we going to address the safety issues that are embedded in the issue.
As a flexible 5 seconds, I'll make one little comment about what Mark said, which is to say that something is illegal is not to say that it should be government's priority to crack down. I think that we should discourage marijuana just as we discourage other things that are essentially vices. And I would like us to see, to benefit from the example of other states which have legalized it before we rush into doing so.
Mr. Hanson?
So as a libertarian, our philosophy is fiscal, being fiscally conservative and socially liberal. As long as you're not infringing upon the rights of others, the government shouldn't be in the business of telling you how to live your life. So by principle, yes, I would sign marijuana legislation if it came to the desk. The one thing I would like to add real quick is I lived in Washington State. Washington legalized marijuana at the same time Colorado did, but they made the law before they had all the rules. When you're driving through downtown Seattle and I have to see 5 out of 9 of the billboards is for pot stores, you know, when there's a pot store that opens up in your neighborhood, when you're opening up an entertainment magazine and seemingly 50% of the ads for pot, you have to also remember what the rules are going to be before you make the law.
Just that I don't want to be confused with saying that pot is a good thing. Pot's stupid. It is. God gives us wonderful things to take advantage of. You don't need to add more to your brain. But what is a good thing is freedom. And that's what legalization does.
For our next question, the order will be Mr. Riegel, Mr. Hansco, Mr. Markley, and Mr. Greenstein. As we know, we are in the midst of a contentious Supreme Court appointment. If a similar situation were to happen for a Connecticut Supreme Court position, what would your approach to handling it be?
I think obviously the question is we're not going to appoint a justice to the Supreme Court, but we will have opportunities truly over the next 4 years to appoint members to the Connecticut Supreme Court and to the Superior District Courts. I would like to make sure we understand how we vet those individuals, that the background checks are exhaustive. On the Supreme Court nominees, I would want to make sure I had a face-to-face conversation or multiple of them to make sure I was asking the question of that individual, is there anything else in your background that the formal investigation hasn't identified that we should know about? And then if something came out, like it has in the situation with Kavanaugh, is I would want to be sure that we gave the nominee appropriate process protection so that the person bringing the accusation was also listened. If we had to slow the process down, work with the legislative committee in charge, we would do that. It's critical that people appointed, the lifetime appointments, in such critical areas are viewed with confidence by the people of Connecticut in terms of their integrity and their values.
Once again, this is a federal issue. As a personal opinion, I personally think that Kavanaugh is a fine nomination. The bigger issue is here, nobody truly knows what really happened way back when, except for 2 people. And under oath, one person said one thing and one person said the opposite. The problem I have with this is that when you're going, when this gentleman's 53 years old and you're going back to things that happened when he was 17, 18 years old, when there's no proof whatsoever, I have a big problem. We have to remember in this country, we have something called the Constitution. It's called due process. There's a reason why we don't have tyranny in this country, because we have due process. You are innocent until you are proven guilty. As the governor of the state, you also have to nominate. There's also things you get involved with. The judicial system, I would never stand for this type of shenanigans. It's turned into a complete circus and it's a disservice to the country.
Thank you, George. For the last 8 years as a legislator, I've had to deal with judicial nominations. Sometimes controversial ones. We had one in this last session with Andrew McDonald's elevation proposed elevation to Chief Justice of the State Supreme Court. I've had 3 criteria in my own mind, which are experience, judicial philosophy, and character. And there is no rule for what how this decision should be made. I think every legislator has to deal with it personally and has to weigh his own opinion of those factors or whatever factors he or she takes into account. As a matter of, as potentially the lieutenant governor, I still might be in the position of voting on a judicial nominee. And it's something that I at least have experience with. As far as appointments go, I would certainly be looking for people that respect the state constitution and the United States Constitution, whose intention is to interpret the laws as written and not to make law.
Forceful and just, I think, are really important beyond just the Supreme Court hearing. It's one reason that Donald Trump has a lot of appeal to a lot of people. Forceful, anyway. Just, he has a chance to have a Supreme Court nominee who could forcefully say how he would rule hypothetically. And how he would rule, I think, in the back of his mind, in the mind of most conservatives, is a respect for the original Constitution. It's not a nitty-gritty document, as many jurists have contended. And Kavanaugh hasn't presented that. Then came the sex stuff. I don't care about the sex stuff. I want a justice who can take this opportunity to really educate. Plus, I want somebody who doesn't lie. And he has lied, not about the sex, but I think you know, when you call Bethesda a crime-ridden place in the 1980s, it's a lie. We could find better people. Mr. Trump, hold that nomination. There are plenty of good conservative jurists that can take Kavanaugh.
The investigation is over with the FBI, so the idea of find out as much as we can, it's done. Everything we know right now. Do you support the confirmation of Justice Kavanaugh, yes or no? Of Judge Kavanaugh? Mr. Hanson?
I do.
Commissioner Mark?
Yes, given what I know, I haven't seen the secret documents, but given what I know, I would support it.
We heard your answer, Mike.
I would not.
And Mr. Kriebel?
I would not, more because of the way he handled himself in front of the congressional hearing. I think there's a serious question about the judicial temperament that came out in those exchanges.
Thank you. All right, next question. Now, this will go with Senator Markley, Mr. Stuart Greenstein, Mr. Kriebel, and Mr. Hanson. Since President Trump's declaration of candidacy, up until today, immigration has been a central issue. What is your position on asylum seekers coming to the United States, and more specifically Connecticut? I should have looked at this question before I asked my sidebar before, but maybe we can include that a little bit. What's your position on asylum seekers coming to the United States? Mr. Markley, you go first.
I'd say that as far as this definition of asylum seekers, again, it's a federal issue, and I have to admit it's one that I don't have great expertise in. It's funny, for these last 8 years that I've been in the legislature, I suppose I've been sufficiently consumed with state issues that my attention to federal issues has been only insofar as they come before us as legislators. I think that it's necessary to have a very careful definition of what and decide what the qualifications or the qualities that define someone as being worthy of asylum are. It's very easy to claim that economic reasons would bring somebody here because I think our opportunity is so great. But really, when you're talking about asylum, you're talking about people who are specifically subject to persecution for political reasons, religious reasons, ethnic reasons. I respect that, but we have to keep a very tight rein on it.
Joe, I think you do have expertise because you have common sense. And what I fear is a lot of judges don't have common sense. They get wrapped into a jurisprudence that includes casuistries and precedents that lack the common wisdom of what is asylum for. And I think the definition is something like, if you're in fear for your life and you can't find refuge elsewhere in your country, that's where we take your application for asylum. And I welcome that. For economic purposes, sorry, that's not asylum. And if you brought your family, and yes, even your kids, to the San Diego checkpoint border, and you're not really seeking asylum, you should be turned back. That's not separating families. That's saying, whole family, go back. That's fair.
Of course, I go back a little bit to the question you asked about which side of the door. I think the rule of law is critical here when someone is being arrested and looking to be deported. This is getting way far afield of the gubernatorial race, but the notion that people come here because in some cases we are not supporting governments in their local economies. People are fleeing places because of dictatorships and tyrants. I think that Defense Secretary Mathias made a comment. The most important element of defense is a robust Secretary of State's office that is reaching into countries and helping to maintain, where appropriate, democracies, or at least making sure that people aren't under the fear of tyranny. These are very complicated issues, but I'll go back to what I said earlier. This is a country that has welcomed people for all kinds of reasons, and it's something that's critical to the long-term core of our democracy, as well as important to giving people to come in and a chance to pursue their dreams here.
So once again, this is a federal issue, but states can step up at times and do certain things. So one of the unique perspectives I've had is, I live in Stanford. Living in Stanford, we're right outside New York City. I've had the good opportunity of spending a lot of time in New York City, and I have a group of friends, I'll use the perfect example for a group of friends that are all from Indonesia. There's quite a few of them. Now, every single one of them came to the United States on a tourist visa and just decided they liked it and they stayed. So what happens afterwards is they all start to seek asylum. So honestly, a large group of them are homosexual, and a large group of them just want to be here. They'll say, well, I come from a Muslim country and they persecute homosexuals and gays back in my country. They persecute Christians back in my country. That's totally untrue. They admitted themselves that that's not true. That's not the case back there. The vast majority of people who come here, they're coming here not for asylum. They're coming here because it's a fantastic place to live. This is the land of opportunity. And once again, we need to leave this in the hands of the federal government, and it needs to be a federal issue, and all immigration needs to be of legal variety only.
We have one more question before closing statements, and we got through the questions. You guys did a great job. Great job at the time as well. You guys have been out. So the question I have for the students here: what plans would you have to make college work? And we'll start with Bishop Riegel, and we'll head.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What plans or proposals do you have to make college more affordable for students?
Well, two things. One is I hope we're not only talking about college, we're also talking about our vocational schools and the opportunities for people to pursue their livelihood however they want to do that. One of the great things about that I think we've gone backwards on in this state is to go around and campaign, you realize how we've undercut some of our vocational schools, maybe even vocational training in some of our standard high schools. We can't just look at this in terms of college. But in terms of the actual tuition cost, George, I think I've said this before, why we need a separate University of Connecticut and a separate Board of Regents, why we need 15 college presidents, 15 CFOs, 15 human resources folks. I would like to seriously explore the idea of having a single university system in this state that is integrated between our two-year schools, campuses at New Britain and elsewhere, and at all the UConn campuses. Making sure that tax dollars that we're paying for higher education, we're going as close to the classroom and the student as they possibly can, as opposed to administrative overhead.
I would not use government to make colleges more affordable. I'd like to see our community colleges be better, which are very affordable now, and our technical schools be better. And you guys, I think, are recognizing that the power of an elite degree is less and less important. Oz and I went to the same college, but yet Ivy League pedigree, which once was powerful, it used to open doors, it doesn't anymore. And so if we have a system where you do well in any college, you get internships while you're there to prove that you do well, you're going to have great job opportunities. So the cost of a community college, which can stay very low, would be right for certain people. And if you decide to go to an elite $70,000 a year university, that's your choice of elite goods. We will always have that. You can pay 5 times as much for certain things on Fifth Avenue as you can in the Bronx. Why not let people shop as they see fit, as long as colleges' degrees are worth the power that they purport to be?
I honestly think that the unsustainable cost of higher education is, again, an unintended consequence of government involvement. The very fact of making such enormous amounts of loan money available to students has allowed colleges and universities to develop bloated bureaucracy. And at the state level, it's something we've got to confront. I think at the University of Connecticut, there are substantial savings to be found, outrageous salaries being paid to administrators, and that's something that the governor can address. Oz makes a very interesting point about the state university system. There's 2 ways forward, and I agree that we have to pick one or the other. Oz would pick one, and I'd pick the other. One is centralize it, which he suggests. The other is to get rid of this unsuccessful relic of attempted centralization, Board of Regents higher education. and allow community colleges again to be based in the community, bottom up, and I think that's the healthier way to go.
When it's not broke, don't fix it. I think the state of Connecticut generally is doing a fantastic job with the community college system, the state universities, and the universities. One thing that I will add is that what I've seen in Europe, and also I saw in Washington State as I was living there, by the age of 16, you generally know at that point if somebody is probably on the four-year university track or if they're probably better suited for the trade school track. And the trade school track is a phenomenal way to go. There are so many phenomenal opportunities for kids these days. I just encourage you, if there's people that are in your ear telling you you need to go to four-year university, but it's not in your heart, don't listen. Always follow your heart. It's going to lead you in the right direction. That being said, is that once again, the state does a fantastic job here in Washington. At the age of 16, they would offer community college classes in the high school. A lot of kids are getting out of high school with the first 2 years of college completed at no cost. Then you can go to the more expensive universities and not have to carry as much debt. So that would be my big thing I've seen before in Europe and in Washington State at the age of 16. Let's get kids on that trade school track. That's the way they need to go. Let's get them on the four university track. And let's make it so it's going to be less expensive for everybody.
Before closing statements, I do have one more, just a quick question and answer, because this week it seems to matter. Red Sox or Yankees?
I live outside New York, so Yankees.
Matt.
Oh, I knew they were going. I knew they were going. Good.
Tomorrow, Dartmouth plays Yale at 6 o'clock. Go Big Green.
Red Sox or Yankees? We're sticking to two.
No go Brewers?
Yeah.
I'll take the Red Sox.
We're best friends all day.
Go Yankees.
All right, at this point, we've heard from the candidates on a variety of issues, especially the ones that one of the students said they were most concerned about. So at this point, we want to give each candidate 45 seconds for closing remarks. And we will go in reverse order, so we're going to start with Mr. Kriegel.
Again, only an independent governor can bring both parties together, bring the private sector together to promote the great asset base we have here in Connecticut and address these significant fiscal impediments to your future. So on November 6th, vote the bottom line. Vote Kriegel Frank. Thank you.
What am I holding up? A voter registration ballot. Gentlemen, ladies, don't sit this out. This is a really important election. An open seat for governor with 5 very good candidates, very good points of view, is your opportunity, and shame on you if you miss it. 45 years ago, 18 to 21-year-olds won the right to vote, and as a class, you guys don't use it. You're the lowest voting percentage. No wonder politicians pay attention to old people. The 85-year-olds who listen to talk radio, that's all they do is vote. And politicians pay attention to them. Let them start paying attention to you and your families.
I want to thank you for this opportunity. I think you can see we've enjoyed ourselves here today. And I think you can see that we like each other. And I think this is something you ought to keep in mind, because politics has a reputation as being a mean and dirty business. But I honestly believe, and I say this too if Ned Lamont were here with us, that we all want the same thing. We want what is best for the state of Connecticut. We have different philosophies, different ideas to some extent about how to get there. But I think that we need to acknowledge that our intentions are right, and we focus on the difference in philosophy. My philosophy is very simple, that we need less government, lower taxes, and let the control be closer to the people. Give the power back to our communities, which are well run, and get it out of the hands as much as possible of the state and federal government.
So in 2014, in the last gubernatorial election, they said it was 50% voter turnout. That actually is not true. It was 50% of registered voters, but after doing an enormous amount of petition signing and campaigning, it's probably about 12 to 15% of the state is unregistered, meaning they could be registered or not. That means in 2014, 65% of people who could have voted stayed home. And what happens with the duopoly, people ask, why are you now part of the two-party duopoly control? Why aren't you a Republican? Why aren't you a Democrat? The problem is that the formula that happens when they're fighting over, there's certain things that just work. And the formula of negative attack ads and bad debates and concentrating on how horrible the other guy is the turnoff of the vast majority of people. And that's why the vast majority of Connecticut residents right now are unaffiliated, they're not part of two parties. When you turn out to vote, it makes an enormous difference. You think it doesn't matter, it matters enormously. So regardless of who you vote for up on this dais today, I encourage all of you today, whoever you think is the best, whether you love us or not, pick whoever the best choice is, be involved. We'll make the product in this country exponentially better. Thank you.
Let's hear it one more time for the four candidates here today. Thank you guys. Thank you, you students. Thank you for timers. You guys are great today. And let's hear it for my partner. Great job.
All right, before we head out, two quick things. Prospect registers is outside the auditorium, so make sure to head to their table before you leave. We also have a photo background, so for students, if you want to take pictures with your, you can pause as well. Registrars is there as well. Students, if you want to take pictures with our candidates, with our dignitaries,